watch this clip, and I'll be back in a little bit. Uh, I have to say, Robert Arnold is one hell of a wordsmith. Uh, Everything he says is exactly what's going through my mind, but I just can't spit it out in words. So I hope you enjoy this. It's a little long, but you're going to like it.
The State of the Union is tired. The State of the Union is bruised. The State of the Union is staggered, betrayed, and ashamed. But the State of the Union is also resilient and hopeful and willing to fight again. The State of the Union is resistance to tyranny when it remembers what tyranny looks like. The State of the Union is defiant. There is something stubborn about this country, something that refuses to lie down. We've heard that the economy is strong. We've heard about growth charts and stock tickers and manufacturing announcements. We've heard about jobs created and inflation tamed and American energy unleashed. We have heard that the cost of living is coming down and that the American dream is back on track, that prosperity is returning to the heartland. An economy, though, is not a press release. It's not the Dow Jones. It's not a ribbon cutting. An economy is a mother deciding whether to fill her own prescription or her child's. It is a man calculating how many miles he can drive with the gas light on before the tank goes dry. It's a family standing in a grocery store aisle doing math on their phones. It is the silence after someone says quietly that we can't afford that. It's a look exchanged across dinner tables when the numbers don't add up and pride keeps anyone from saying it out loud. Growth that doesn't translate into dignity is not strength, and prosperity that does not reach the people is not prosperity. Dignity is being able to work one job and live one life. It is not apologizing for needing health care. Dignity is being able to not feel like a failure because the system is designed to extract more than it was ever designed to give back. We've heard immigration framed as chaos brought under control or chaos unleashed by someone else. We've heard about walls and surges and removals and enforcement actions described like battlefield victories, and we have heard about restoring order. But order without humanity is not order. It is fear and control dressed up as policy. The soul of this country is not measured by how efficiently it can expel the powerless. It is measured by whether it can hold law and mercy in the same trembling hands. Border policy is complicated, but sovereignty matters, and so does security. But so does the child who has known only this soil as home, that same soil we sing about and are so goddamn proud of. So do those whose hands have built the houses we lived in. So does the teacher and the nurse and the neighbor who arrived here with more hope than English and built a life anyway. It is measured by whether we can look at a family seeking refuge and see not a threat, but a reflection of our own grandparents stepping off boats with nothing but a name and a prayer and a desire to have something better. It is measured by whether enforcement becomes humiliation or remains justice. It is measured by whether we remember that every statistic once had a heartbeat. If our solutions strip away the human face of the problem, then we have not solved anything. We have only revealed who we are becoming. And who we are becoming is the real question. We've heard about national security. We've heard about threats abroad and strength restored. We've heard about funding levels and military readiness and projecting power. We were told that safety is strength and that strength is safety. But a nation can't bomb its way into moral authority. It cannot surveil its way into unity, and it cannot posture its way into trust. National security is not only missiles and ships. It's whether our citizens feel secure in their own rights. It is whether journalists can write without fear. It is whether protest is treated as patriotism rather than treason. It is whether the Constitution still breathes in practice and not just in ceremony. It is whether a citizen can criticize their government without wondering if their name is on a list or in a file, or if their freedom is in question, or if their life is at risk. It is whether dissent is understood as loyalty to principle rather than disloyalty to power. It is whether the machinery of the state remains servant or becomes master. And now, creeping into the background, like a fever dream that refuses to break, you will hear whispers of election integrity, of fraud without proof, of suspicion without evidence, of doubt that has been sown again and again and again into soil that has already been tested and proven solid. We've heard it framed as vigilance, as caution, as patriotic skepticism. But skepticism without evidence becomes corrosion, and it eats at trust, and it hollows out confidence. It leaves a shell of a democracy that looks intact until the first real storm hits. So let's be clear. Confidence in elections is sacred. It must be guarded fiercely, but you do not guard confidence by attacking it without cause. You do not strengthen democracy by convincing millions that their vote doesn't count. You do not protect the republic by lighting matches near the foundation. The American system has been strained before. It's been tested by war, by depression, by assassinations and riots and corruption and fear. And each time the strength of it was not in the absence of conflict. It was in the willingness of citizens to accept outcomes even when they lost. It was in the humility of leaders to concede. It was in the shared understanding that the process mattered more than the person. And when that understanding erodes, the danger is not partisan. The danger is existential. And existential dangers do not announce themselves with sirens. They arrive quietly, wrapped in language that sounds reasonable, asking only that you doubt just a little bit more, trust just a little bit less, and retreat just a little further into your own corner. But the truth of this, the State of the Union is not the speech. The State of the Union is the people. It's a teacher who stays late in a crumbling classroom. It is a volunteer at the food pantry who never asks how you voted. It's the nurses who work through exhaustion and the farmers who plant again after a flood. It's the protesters who stand in the Minnesota cold because conscience does not let them sit at home. It is your neighbor who mows the lawn of the widow down the street. It is a coach who buys cleats for kids that can't afford them. It is the church basement where the Christian and the Buddhist and the strangers become family over shared purpose and shared grief. The State of the Union is not perfect, but it never has been. It was born in argument. It was forged in disagreement. It took years of letters and debates and compromises to produce the Constitution we now quote like Whitman. There was no loyalty oath at the founding, no purity test for those who loved the flag the most. There was only a fragile thing built by flawed humans who believed that liberty required constant vigilance and constant repair. They did shout at one another. They accused one another. They feared one another, and still they chose a system where power could change hands without blood in the streets. That was radical, and it was brave, and it was fragile. And we have confused branding now for patriotism. We have mistaken volume for conviction, and we have wrapped ourselves in the symbols and forgotten what they stand for. Liberty is not loud. It is stubborn. It is messy. It is feral, a wild thing. Freedom is not unbreakable. It's very fragile. Democracy is not guaranteed. It has to be chosen again and again and again by ordinary people who refuse to surrender it. And when the cost of living crushes the working class while corporations post record profits, that's not strength. When immigration policy becomes an instrument of terror rather than reform, that is not security. And when national defense becomes a pretext for domestic suppression, that is not safety. When election doubt is manufactured for political leverage, that is not integrity. We can do better. We have done better, and we will do better again, because the State of the Union is not defined by the occupant of the Oval Office. It is defined by the courage of the citizen. It is defined by whether we show up for one another when it would be easier to retreat into our own cynicism. It is defined by whether we insist on truth, even when lies are convenient. It is defined by whether we protect the least powerful among us as fiercely as we protect our own. The State of the Union is bruised because we have been fighting each other instead of the forces that hollow out our communities. It is staggered because we've allowed fear to masquerade as leadership. It is ashamed because we know deep down that we are capable of much more than this. Ashamed because we have scrolled past suffering. Ashamed because outrage has become entertainment. And ashamed because we have sometimes mistaken being right for being kind. But it is resilient. It is a single mother going back to school at night. It is a rural town refusing to disappear. It is the immigrant who still believes in this place enough to risk everything for it. It's a veteran who demands that the freedoms they fought for be honored at home. It is a young voter standing in line for the first time with his heart pounding, believing that participation still matters. It's a quiet decision to stay engaged, the quiet decision to forgive, the quiet decision to run for office or to volunteer, to organize, to write, to speak, to refuse to give up. The State of the Union is resistance when it remembers what resistance is for. Not chaos, not destruction, but preservation of the promise that no one is above the law and that no one is beneath its protection. The State of the Union is defiant in the face of authoritarian rule, defiant in the face of corporate greed that would squeeze the life out of the middle class, defiant in the face of racial injustice and cultural panic, defiant in the face of apathy, defiant in the face of a quiet voice that says none of this even matters. And here's what I believe with everything in my body. We are not alone. We are not as weak as we sometimes feel. We are wounded, yes, but wounds heal and bruises fade. And sometimes it is the scar that reminds you that you survived. There is still something here worth fighting for. Not an idol or a brand, but an idea. An idea that government exists to serve people, not the other way around. An idea that rights are inherent, not granted. An idea that disagreement is not disloyalty. An idea that the arc of this country bends not by magic, but by the hands that refuse to let go. Hands that are tired from work. Hands that are drawn with age. Hands that are proud from voting. Hands that are sometimes clenched and raged, and hands that are raised in protest. If the State of the Union is tired, then let it rest in one another's strength. If it is bruised, let it heal through solidarity. And if it is staggered, then let it lock arms and steady itself. But do not think that it is broken beyond repair. Do not think that cynicism is wisdom. Do not think that cruelty is realism. The State of the Union is not a statistic. It is a heartbeat. And as long as that heartbeat remains, as long as there are citizens willing to stand up and speak out and organize and vote and serve and love and refuse to surrender, then this experiment is still alive. It's alive in every town, alive in every ballot, alive in every act of humanity that does not make the evening news. The State of the Union is hopeful. The State of the Union is that it is still ours, and if anyone seeks to shrink it, to silence it, to hollow it out or bend it toward tyranny, then they will find that beneath the bruises and the exhaustion, there is still a people who remember who they are. And when the people remember, they rise. They rise as citizens. They rise not in hatred, but in clarity. They rise because they understand that democracy is not involuntary. It demands participation. It demands courage, and it demands sacrifice. And when they rise, they do not whisper. They thunder, and they rage. Defiance till death.
And that's everything that goes through my mind, but he says it the best. So hope you enjoy this. Hope you have a good day and good health.